Imagine you are a proud parent taking your child to their first day of school. September 4th, 1962, my mother took me by the hand in a beautiful fall day in San Francisco and said, "Jeffrey, I've waited 5 years for this day. Let's go to kindergarten." Now, if you had been standing beside us, I am absolutely sure you would have heard me say something profound on this seminal moment in my life. My mother insists that what I said was, "Mom, what's kindergarten?" 3 blocks up the hill we went to McKinley Grade School in the Mission District of San Francisco, where she deposited her young, good-looking son into kindergarten, probably dreaming of this moment of peace and quiet for the first time since I was born. Back down the hill she goes. 2 hours and 47 minutes later, according to my mother, the phone rings. "Mrs. Purtee, this is Principal Martin's office. We have your son Jeffrey up in the principal's office. We're going to need you to come pick him up." What could that boy have done? He never gets in any trouble. Plus, did I mention he was good looking? He never gets in any trouble. So you can imagine now she's trudging up the 3 blocks. Oh, God, what could he have gotten himself into? Off to the principal's office she goes, where I'm already in there. She's ushered into Principal Martin's office, where it's explained, "Mrs. Purtee, after the first hour, your son Jeffrey began to request that the teachers teach them how to read. By the 3rd hour of the kindergarten, he was standing up demanding that they teach him how to read. After which, the teacher called me. We had Jeffrey come to the office so that we could discuss this issue with you." Now, I'm sure my mother looked at me and said, "What?" Because up to that point, I'd never indicated such a passion for reading. However, what my mom actually said was, that's amazing. What are we going to do about that?" "Well, Mrs. Purtee, we're going to have to rein in his behavior because he can't be disrupting the class." "Well, I know that, but it does seem a bit of a problem that all he's asking is that he be taught. And after all, isn't that what we're here for?" "Mrs. Purtee, we don't teach reading until the 1st grade. You're going to have to explain to your son it's the 1st grade until we teach reading." "I understand that, Principal Martin. But you can understand my dilemma because I want to encourage Jeffrey to get all the learning possible. You know, this is such a tough issue. Do you think this is something we might want to take up with the school board as to why I can send my son to school and you can't teach him to read?" "Mrs. Purtee, I don't really think that's necessary. Perhaps if we call his teacher in, we can work something out." And so they did. They worked out a great deal. I'm not sure you could even do this today, but that was a long time ago. And the teacher agreed to spend 15 minutes after class every day with me, teaching me how to read on the promise that I behaved myself for all 3 hours of kindergarten. Fast forward decades later. I'm in college by now. We're sitting around the family table and we're sharing family stories. And I remember asking Mom, reminding her of that story and saying, "Mom, how did you know to say that to the principal and that would work?" She looked at me and said, "Jeffrey, everybody has a boss. You find their boss, you find their pressure point." I remember thinking, you find their boss, you find their... Mom, do you mind if I write that down? That is pretty good. You know, Mom, I can't believe I thought as a teenager you were so clueless. That's pretty good. You find their pressure point, you find their boss, you find their pressure point. And using that little principle, I started reading at age 5, and I've never slowed down. That is Toastmasters.